Hi there, welcome to this week market analysis. First thing first, I think important to note is that as of this recording, we do have a upcoming Bank of Japan news release, where we might expect some kind of volatility in the yen related. Okay, but of course, depending on the time that you're watching this video, the event may have happened or may not, right? So if you're looking at some of this yen analysis, such as the dollar yen, bear that in mind, okay? Because as I'm recording, the news has yet to be released, but later on, maybe you're watching it later part of the day. The analysis on yen related may have already moved, or perhaps there will need to be an update on the yen related ones. Good. So with that, let's kickstart with the dollar index over here. Okay, so dollar index as of now has bounced off a little bit from the low at 107.75 after that decent drop. So most of the time after an impulsive move, we want to be a little bit patient, simply to wait and see what's next, what are the structure, what is the pattern that the market is going to develop. So for now, what we are seeing here potentially is that the dollar index might do a little bit of a retracement back up, potentially towards that trade 2 and 50% Fibonacci, which come in line quite nicely with the previous structure here as well, somewhere around 103.25 to 103.7. If we can get that perhaps by next week, we might have a decent opportunity to look for more downside on the dollar itself. So I would say perhaps for the remaining part of this week here, it's more of a patient and neutral perspective, waiting for the dollar to kind of develop into a clearer corrective structure first. Now in terms of euro dollar, quite the inverse. Okay, we have the price actually push up pretty strong recently, and then right now we are basically waiting for a pullback. Same here towards potentially that trade 2 and 50%, which again in line with some of the previous structure. We have this little trend line over here which comes quite nicely towards that 50. So again, we're going to be patient for now and see if the market can pull back a little bit towards this 1.0730 to 1.0680. If you can get that, then of course we might have a decent opportunity to look to buy the euro. Okay, so this one here perhaps not going to come to us this week. We might need to be patient and wait for it closer towards the next week itself. Right, and then we have the pound dollar over here. Pound dollar seems to be developing as a potential diagonal structure, or what we call a crawl. At this moment here, what it can turn out to be is this might be what we know as a leading diagonal, perhaps from here a decent corrective pullback and then another push back up towards this high at 1.2445 to complete that double top structure, perhaps then the bigger move to the downside. It's a little bit too early to kind of forecast all the way there, but whenever we see kind of a cross structure like that, a diagonal structure like that, we'll be cautious on any buy setup, okay, and more focused towards a potential reversal here. Okay, the question is only whether this is gonna get a drop all the way towards 1.1840, or is this gonna just be a completion of the diagonal and then we see a decent pullback and that's all. Right now we don't have that piece of information. That's why I'm maintaining and suggest to maintain a pretty neutral perspective and give it time again, before committing to any potential trades. So most of this pair here, I would say, this week, okay, you might just want to stay disciplined, okay, and of course, be patient and wait for a clear setup to come to us. Okay. Now Aussie dollar quite similar in the overall structure as compared to the pound dollar, right? We kind of see this as an potential diagonal, but the context is slightly different over here, right? So if I go back to the pound dollar, you can see that this little diagonal comes from a bottom, right? And this is the first structure that we see after the market bottom. So the context is quite different in terms of Aussie, because Aussie here, this diagonal actually comes from not really a bottom, but way back. The market has been coming higher, and then we see this diagonal. Right? So that's where, from an Elliott Wave perspective, we have a difference between a potential ending diagonal and what we call a leading diagonal, right? So pound dollar seems to be more of a leading diagonal structure, whereas the Aussie dollar over here potentially might be an ending diagonal. Okay, so ending diagonal would give you a little bit more of a downside opportunity because as the name suggests, right, it's potentially the end of that move, and a bigger reversal would likely come. So right now, on Aussie dollar, is definitely worth monitoring. The question is just whether are we gonna see that breakdown from here, which potentially can happen, because we do have that divergence in as well already, which suggests already lack of momentum. Or alternatively, this might just go up a little bit more to complete that fifth move internally before that bigger move to the downside, right? So you need to keep an eye on Aussie dollar if you're looking for potential trade to the downside. Starting today, you want to see, if we can get an impulsive break below this recent low at 6925, then that would be a good sell opportunity. Alternatively, you wait for a pulse back up, a decent rejection, and then you can use that recent low for potential break. Okay, so that's on Aussie side of things. And then we have the dollar Canadian. Okay, so dollar Canadian overall, since the start of the week, nothing much has changed. We're still essentially kind of forecast that this might turn out into a bigger corrective structure in terms of an expanding flat. And the area that we are monitoring is 3480. Okay, so ideally what we want to see is this continue to go up a little bit more, and then on the lower scale, such as H1 or 30-minute time frame, we want to see a decent crawl pattern as the market approaches this 3480 zone. If you can get that, then of course we can utilize a simple breakout, okay, of that H1 or 30-minute crawl, and then your stop can place just above that recent high, and then with a target of 3225, that risk to reward ratio is going to be very, very decent. Okay, so I think dollar Canadian is definitely one of the pair that we might get a setup perhaps closer towards the end of the week, or maybe even earlier next week, right? So this is something you can keep an eye on. Next up, we have the dollar yen. Okay, just as I was speaking, I think the news has released, right? So we kind of see the volatility kicking in. So initially, the forecast, you can see, I think, what I have here is that if the market breaks this 127.95, we're gonna get that potential sell. But of course, the market did not do that, but instead is reversing up quite impulsively. So we're gonna update a little bit, as we're speaking right now. I think we'll kind of remove a little bit of this. Potentially, this seems to be, as of now, okay, a near-term bottom. So we'll keep it there as 127.20. Right now, we're definitely not looking to sell anymore, and I would say you want to be just neutral, because if you're gonna see this as an impulsive move, kind of like a V shape, you just want to be patient on it, right? So I think something is developing on the yen, perhaps, weakness on that. Maybe they're talking about not too aggressive hike and things like this. I haven't looked at it. Okay, I think the news just came out as I'm recording this video. So right now, just maintain a neutral perspective, and just give it some time and see how eventually it's going to develop before we commit to any trade. Yeah. Okay. So maybe let me also update this text a little bit over here. I think, because as I'm recording, it's already out. Okay, so essentially we're just going to be remaining patient and see how price is going to develop from here. Okay, gold wise, I think overall, if you look at it from a daily scale, it's ending a little bit of an impulsive move. So overall, I'm still maintaining a bullish bias. I think for those of you who have been listening to some of those sharings that I've been doing, you know that on the long term, bigger picture perspective, I'm very, very bullish on gold or even the commodity space. That view is still there. I did not change it. I think I'm still very bullish in the commodity space, especially gold here for the next couple of years. So that macro and fundamental view did not change, right? The only thing right now is, at least on the lower scale, on a 4-hour chart time frame, there is no valid buy setup at this moment. Okay, so if you're kind of combining a charts perspective to get into a trade, you just want to have that discipline as well to wait for that setup to come to you. Okay, so for me, the direction of gold is very clear. We're looking at more upside, but in terms of the lower time frame, we don't have an entry yet. Okay, unless you already have a position running. I do have one ETF position on GLD running earlier already. I'm keeping that position, not letting go of that, obviously. If you have any existing gold trade that's running, I think it's good to just keep it running. We're looking at, very huge target upside over here, potentially all the way back to the top around 2070 area, and potentially even breaking that. Okay, so have that in mind if you are involved in gold. Okay, crude oil here, I'm maintaining a neutral perspective. The market is kind of testing this 1618 around the 80.40, but I'm seeing a little bit of a lack of momentum as this is developing. I think there's also the divergence build up right now, so definitely not a good place to be buying. Okay, and I think it's a little bit too early to be talking about this sell right now. We need some more confirmation before we get that sell. Okay, but of course, if you're aggressive in in your entry, you can consider a potential low here. Okay, that might give you a sell if this breaks down impulsively, right? So that's on crude oil. S&P, you want to be careful, at least from a trading perspective. What we are seeing here is this looks very crawlish in nature, and there's a good chance this may come back and even retest the previous bottom at 3763. It may not go so deep, but from this structure here, it doesn't tell us a good probability that it will just pulse up from here, right? At least maybe this will pull back a little bit more before the bigger move. Okay, so if you're trading in terms of like equities, indices, just be aware that short term we might get a retracement or even a potential move to the downside from here. Okay, lastly, we have Bitcoin here to cover. BTC as of now, on a higher time frame perspective, is testing that previous high at 21380. Okay, so definitely very impulsive. I think the momentum here is to the upside, but you want to be careful and see how the market is going to react off this zone first. If this is going to be a crawl, then it might take more time, because then this can come back as a pullback before that bigger move, so it might take more time to develop. Okay, longer time. If this immediately just starts to pull back a little bit, then of course we can start to look for a potential breakout to the upside. Okay, of course we also don't deny that there's a good chance this might still just do a V shape like that. So for now, suggestion is obviously just maintain a neutral perspective, give it time and see what's going to develop from here. Then we have a high probability of projecting what we want to do about it. Okay, so that's all from me for today over here. All the best to your trading for the remaining part of this week, and gentle reminder, manage your risk, and I'll see you guys in the next one.